Domestic airfares are still pretty high. You know, they haven't really come down over the last 12 months, and it can be quite hard to get seats, particularly over the busy period. The international airfares probably a bit better. You know, we're getting more capacity in, and fares have come down over 10% over the last 12 months to most major destinations. So, yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, particularly over this holiday period.
At your most recent trading update, you said the company was taking a bit of a hit from airfare price deflation. Is that still happening?
Yeah, look, internationally there is deflation, and as a business and leisure travel retailer, that a fair bit of our business is international, and there's significant deflation there. However, if you look domestically in Australia, and it obviously varies, we're in 26 countries with our business travel, it does vary quite a lot, but in some areas it's deflation. In Australia, for example, the both major domestic airlines, Virgin and Qantas, have about 2% less seats than they did 12 months ago. And that's why the prices generally are, you know, staying up quite high domestically. Whereas international, we're getting reasonable deflation. And we expect it to continue as more airlines come in. You know, you've just heard about the Qatar Virgin Australia tie-up. So these extra capacity will deflate airfares over the next 12 months as well, we think.
Last week, the consumer watchdog gave the green light to a deal between Virgin and Qatar Airways. Do you think that will result in airfares coming down domestically and internationally?
Well, particularly internationally initially, because that's another 28 flights of wide-body jets going through Doha. Domestically, initially, I don't think you'll see a lot of impact, and obviously there's still a few regulatory hurdles for them to get over. But we believe that with Qatar having 25% of Virgin Australia, they'll be able to compete better domestically with Qantas and Jetstar. So we think in the longer run it will impact positively on domestic airfares too, positively for the consumers anyway.
The ACCC has recently flagged that airfares have jumped domestically since Rex went into administration. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, well, that's the problem, and that's one of the reasons they've jumped. Obviously, Bonza and Rex being out of the market, they weren't big players. Particularly Bonza was more a regional player, and Rex had, they did work the Golden Triangle to a certain extent, but weren't a big player in that either. And the real key is, Alicia, the fact that Virgin's looking to do some sort of IPO, as well as this sale to Qatar. At some stage in the reasonably near future, they're probably going to do an IPO, so they're obviously trying to keep their profits up. And there's no secret that Qantas and Jetstar are trying to make the most of this period where competition's not that great in the Australian market. So that's probably the main reason that airfares domestically are still quite high. We believe that as Virgin becomes more competitive, has a stronger balance sheet with Qatar coming in, that you will see much better competition on those domestic routes. That's what we think. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
So do you think Qantas and Virgin are deliberately taking advantage of lessened competition to keep prices high?
Look, obviously, and you can't blame them for that. They're public companies, or Virgin's are still owned by a private equity firm. So their aim is to maximise their income, maximise their profit. So you can't really blame them for that. And the reality is, but the market conditions are letting them keep their prices up. And they could argue, well, that's good luck to us.
The latest national accounts figures show growth is slowing more than expected. The economy is really struggling. How's that playing out when it comes to travel decisions?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I think, particularly in Australia, the under 40s, families and younger people are struggling with that, cost of living. And that is affecting their travel, particularly not only domestically but internationally as well. On the other hand, the baby boomers, the over 50s, who are pretty comfortable with their savings and their assets, it's still going very strongly. But it's not all sections are firing in the travel industry, as you can see. So we think that it'll become a bit softer, assuming this cost of living problem and inflation keeps going into 2025.
Do you think travellers are holding out for a rate cut? Would that improve the state of the travel market?
Look, it'll vary. Some people, obviously a lot of the over 50s have investments, so they do quite well out of higher interest rates. It's the younger people that probably are struggling to travel, particularly if you've got a family, particularly if you're going overseas. It can be very expensive. A family of 4 people, going to Europe or North America can be very expensive. So rate cuts, and they probably most of them will have mortgages, so a rate cut would definitely benefit them. We've found things post-COVID generally have been booming, of course, up until about May, June, and then things definitely got softer as a lot of that so-called revenge travel caught up with the travel industry, and it has been a bit softer. October, November, generally not too bad, but it's a bit hard to see how the future lies, from December and through calendar year 2025.
So is it going to be a softer Christmas?
I think Christmas will be pretty strong, just because there's limited availability. If people want to travel at Christmas, it's getting very late, particularly just pre-Christmas and pre-New Year. So planes are already running pretty full. So the fares will almost certainly be much better value from about mid-January, February, March, particularly domestically.
For cashed-up travellers, where are they heading? And then on the other side, are you seeing people look for more affordable options?
Look, the popular destinations at the moment are obviously New Zealand. There's a fair bit of VFR traffic there, but also Japan, and Singapore's very popular at the moment. Europe's probably the big one, Europe and the UK in particular. And many people who are travelling are still catching up with the travel they missed during COVID. And North America is quite popular, particularly the States and Canada, although some of the fares there are quite expensive.
The Australian dollar is near a 7-month low against the greenback. How is that affecting travellers' decisions?
Yeah, look, particularly against the pound, the euro and the US dollar, the Australian dollar's been fairly weak for some time now. And obviously this will tend to increase the price of fuel for our local carriers in particular, and also the price of accommodation in those major markets. So we find generally people who are going to travel anyway. They will tend to perhaps shorten their travel a little bit or downgrade their standard of a hotel from maybe 5-star to 4-star or 3.5-star. So people generally adapt to a weaker Australian dollar. They just cut back their spending. Most people have some sort of budget, and the budget's obviously in Australian dollars. So if the Australian dollar's weak, they just realise they've just got to spend somewhat less, travel a little bit shorter, downgrade their accommodation a little bit. So that's generally the way we've found people cope with a weak Australian dollar over the years.
Graham Turner, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Alicia. It's a pleasure.